Hey everyone, this is Eric here from Personal Profitability, and I had a quick favor to ask you before we get started. Now, this is a pretty new podcast. It's only about 3 months old, and I'm trying to really grow the audience and help as many people as I can. So if you like what you hear here, if you could just take a few minutes and share it on your favorite social networking site with some friends or people you think might enjoy it. If you use Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Reddit, Buffer, StumbleUpon, Tumblr, Instapaper, or if people still use Dig or Delicious, I don't know, I think those went out of style a while back. If you could just take a second and give it a share, I would really appreciate it. Thanks and enjoy the episode.
This is Peter Anderson from BibleMoneyMatters.com. And now, your host, Eric Rosenberg. He'll balance your checkbook, he'll tell you where to invest, and he'll even DJ your wedding. This is the Personal Profitability Podcast.
You're listening to the Personal Profitability Podcast, where you'll learn how to earn income, live better, and put your money to work for you. Here's your guide on your path to personal profitability, Eric Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Personal Profitability Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Rosenberg. And I'm so excited to have you back here with us again today. And today we have a very special guest, one of my good friends who I am so excited was able to come in and join us. His name is Jeffrey Trull. Now, Jeffrey has a very interesting online history that I think a lot of you could learn a lot from. That's why he's here with us today. So he started out with a regular full-time job, just like most of us have or have had, and then began working on his own side income streams, doing online writing, which developed into a pretty big business, so big that he was able to leave his full-time job and work for himself full-time, which he did for quite a while. And then just actually in the last few weeks, he took another full-time job, went back from being a self-employed online entrepreneur to someone working at a company. So, that's kind of an unusual journey. So Jeffrey is here today to talk to us about it. So say hello, Jeffrey.
Hey, Eric. Hey, everyone. Glad to be here. It's exciting. I think it's probably one of the first few podcasts I've done, so should be fun.
Well, welcome to having your voice on the internet. So
looking forward to it.
So everybody, as you are aware, if you've been listening for a while, this is your opportunity to hit the pause button and go grab your beer so you can have a beer with us, because personal finance should be fun and not some boring, mundane things. So here's your pause moment. Okay, your pause moment's over. Welcome back. So I hope you have something tasty and good. And if you're driving a car or at work where it's not allowed, obviously you don't want to drink a beer. So, but if you're sitting at home listening with your headphones or with whoever you're with your friends, with your dogs, I hope you're enjoying something good. I myself am having a beer that was new to me just last week. It's called Hop Smack from Cascade Lakes. It's a local Oregon brewery, and I like my IPAs and I like my Oregon beers living here. So cheers for a Hop Smack. What are you having on your end, Jeffrey?
I also have a beer from Bend, Oregon with me. I have Deschutes Black Butte Porter. Happily comes from the 6th largest craft brewery in the country, which I'm growing even more loyal to recently because of the some of the big beer buyouts that have been going on. So happy to have Deschutes here making great beer in Oregon. Well,
here's a virtual clink. Cheers to Deschutes.
Cheers.
And two Oregon beers that we're enjoying.
Yeah.
I don't know if people can hear me gulping on the
I can, sound. So I'm assuming everyone else can too.
I don't know if that's like good radio or bad radio etiquette to hear me swallowing on the internet.
Sounds pretty authentic, at least.
I know, it's real. I'm doing it. Yeah. You also hear my squeaky chair probably when I move around. I should work on that. Well, anyway, we'll jump into the good stuff. So let's start out by just getting a little bit about your history and your background. I know we met through FinCon at the very first FinCon because you had a blog called Money Spruce, which I know you don't do quite as much with today. Can you just tell a little about Money Spruce, how you got started writing online, and the journey you've had with that site?
Sure. So like maybe many freelancers or people in this area get into personal finance interests and things. I kind of have a wacky background. I started off as an engineer, actually. I have 2 degrees in engineering, civil and environmental engineering. So not really a whole lot of a writing background, just a little bit doing on school newspaper and tutoring and stuff. But I started Money Spruce after I really was a fan of Get Rich Slowly, and I was reading a lot of JD's writing, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And I just got kind of bored when I finished grad school. I was bored at night because I couldn't be studying all the time. I was working in AmeriCorps at the time, so my job ended at 5 p.m. I'm like, geez, what do I do with all this extra time at night? I'm like, well, why don't I start a blog and write about something I'm interested in? So I think I started a bicycle blog, actually, because I'm really into bicycles, for about a month. And I was like, well, I don't know what this is really going to turn into, especially in terms of if I ever hope to make money from it. So I started Money Spruce like a month later. I believe that was back in the end of 2010, early 2011. And it just kind of turned into my own place to write and have my own thoughts out there. And after a little while, gained some steam. I got linked up on some pretty cool sites like Time Moneyland and some others, and a few people started to notice. And I, from there, kind of snowballed into getting offered some freelance writing gigs on the side. So that was really cool.
Great. So I know in that time, somewhere in there, you moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I have a move story when I moved from Denver to Portland, and you beat me to Portland by a year or so. So what prompted your decision? Was there any career related decision with your move? Was there a financial decision? How did you decide to pick up and move across the country?
Yeah, so actually a lot of things happened all at once, but it was pretty well planned out, thankfully, and things went according to plan. But after a while of doing some freelancing on the side, and probably around the time I met you, Eric, I decided that I think I'm going to try to give this freelancing full-time thing a go. So about 8 months ahead of time, when I actually ended up quitting my job, I started saving up money, what I call my quit my job fund. And basically, so I could just have some money to transition from being an employee to being a full-time freelancer. So after saving up, I've saved up about $8,000 just strictly so I could make the leap between being an employee and being a full-time freelancer. I quit my job in May 2012. And at the time I was living in Connecticut, and I was like, well, if I'm quitting my job and, I can work from wherever I want as a freelancer, why don't I give somewhere else a try? So after some friends, or a friend of mine in particular who grew up outside of Portland, Oregon, and doing some research and admittedly watching the Portlandia TV show and loving it, I decided, hey, I'll give Portland a try. I love bicycling. I love, drinking beer. There's great vegetarian food. There's great outdoor stuff. It sounds like a great city for me. So why don't I give Portland a try? And I've been living here ever since, and it's been great.
Something funny about Portlandia. Before I moved here, I thought it was funny and I enjoyed it, but I didn't totally get it. There's some jokes were just lost to me. I was like, oh, that's kind of stupid. I put it up to being kind of a corny show. And then I rewatched those same episodes after I moved here, and I have a totally new appreciation for it. I was laughing quite a lot more watching them in Portland. And my favorite was there was an episode where they had got up to a stop sign at the same time. I was like, you go ahead. And then I was like, no, you go ahead. And they did that for like 3 hours before they hit each other. Like that feels like what it's like driving here sometime. Everyone's super courteous.
Yeah, that's pretty much my favorite scene as well. It's too true to even imagine. It's so funny. That happens like every day to me.
Yeah. Except when they run the stop sign out on my corner, but that's a whole nother story, I guess.
Yeah.
Different Portlanders. Yep. So I guess back to the business side of things. So when you had a full-time job in Connecticut, was that in line with your educational background and engineering type work?
Actually, no, it wasn't. After I finished grad school and got my master's in engineering, I decided that I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I took a job working for AmeriCorps Vista. So the way, if you're not familiar with it, the way I describe it is sort of like a Peace Corps, except it's in the United States. And basically, I worked at a nonprofit for a year as a quote unquote volunteer in New Haven, Connecticut. And during that time, I just got paid a stipend, which was probably, I think, about $1,200 a month. So not very much to live on, which was a challenge, but it turned out to be a good one in terms of learning to live frugally. But so I was doing that. I did that for a year, and then that same nonprofit hired me on for about another year after that until I quit that job and decided to do freelancing full time.
So that was the job you had while you were saving up your $8,000 quit my job and move fund?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And, working in a nonprofit, I didn't get paid a whole lot, but I learned to live pretty lean after that year of AmeriCorps Vista. So, I think when I took the job at the same place from when I got paid as an AmeriCorps Vista, I think my, salary like tripled overnight, or maybe more than that even. But I wrote a few posts about it on Money Spruce. But it was pretty interesting how much it changed and how it really impacted my view on how much money you need to get by.
So, if you don't mind sharing, how much were you making in that nonprofit job? And did you have enough freelance income when you left to totally replace it? Or were you partway there? What was your feeling? How did you know it was okay to leave and you'd make it?
So at that nonprofit job, my salary was $45,000 a year. So not a whole lot, but pretty decent, I think.
Yeah, for a lot of cities, that's a lot. I know on the East Coast, that doesn't go quite as far as it does somewhere like, I don't know, Iowa.
yeah, probably not. But I had pretty good living arrangement in New Haven. So I, paid pretty much bottom of the barrel for housing. I think my rent was only $400 a month. Wow. I shared a pretty small place with a couple of roommates. I definitely could have been paying more, but I deliberately chose not to pay more. I didn't have a car at the time. I decided not to. My car died a year before. I decided not to buy a new one. So I kept expenses pretty lean, and I was pretty much able to put away half of every paycheck, at least half. So I just take the half the paycheck. I actually paid off all my student loan debt right away before I started saving that quit my job fund. So that was really, really huge in terms of, quitting my job and easing the transition into freelancing. And I actually didn't, when I started freelancing full time and I made the jump, I didn't have enough money I didn't have enough income coming in to replace my full-time job. So that was kind of part of the plan. Like I didn't expect to either. I just didn't think that was going to happen, but it turned out to be, and I think this is one of the biggest lessons I learned freelancing is that, finding work isn't as easy as you think all the time. It's not just a matter of suddenly deciding today that I want to find more work today and then putting in the time to find that work. It's kind of a long cumulative process of marketing yourself, which turned out to be more difficult than I thought out of the gate.
Okay. So there were a couple of great lessons what you said in there. One big one to people, you're saving 50% of your income while making a pretty modest salary in a not so cheap area of the country to live. So if Jeffrey can do it there, then you guys can do it too out there, everyone. So that's a great lesson to learn. So when you started full-time freelancing, what was your typical monthly income there? And did that grow as you built your portfolio up?
So it was pretty low to start. I had really just one primary gig out of the gate. I was working for, it was a personal finance related blogging site. I think it was something pretty obscure that I don't know if anyone really would have heard of, but I think they paid me $350 a week to write 3 blog posts, which at the time I thought, wow, that's great. That's like, 115 and change per blog post. This is great. I actually wasn't sure I wanted to take it right out of the gate, but I'm like, well, I can't turn this down. This is a great opportunity. So I had that, which was good to have some income. And I was, pretty focused on doing that writing, and, I was enjoying my newfound freedom a little bit after my job. So I wasn't exactly, pounding the pavement to find more work right out of the gate. I just moved out to Portland. It was summertime, and I'm like, well, it's summer. This is great. So that was pretty much my only income for the first several months. So as you can imagine, I was dipping into my quit my job fund a decent amount. I can't, say exactly what my monthly budget would have been at the time. My housing situation was still pretty cheap in Portland. I found a sublet for $600 a month, including utilities. That's not too bad. And luckily I found someone that could, it was actually my friend Jenna, to take me in because I didn't know anything about Portland. So that worked out really well. But it was a little bit tough out of the gate because I didn't have a whole lot of work. But at the same time, I'm really glad I had that money saved up strictly for the purpose of making the transition.
So as your money fund was slowly dwindling down after your move, was there a point that financially you were like, well, wow, I have to get more work, or did that become a kind of natural evolution as you were settling in?
There's definitely points where I felt like I had to get more work. I think the real challenge I faced was that I didn't know how to get more work as well as I thought I knew how to do it. So what did you think you knew? And then what were your tough lessons learned, and how did you overcome that? So I thought, I really thought it was just a matter of, like A, putting in the amount of time to find the work, and B, getting my name out there by writing on more sites. And I think for A, just finding more work, I thought, all right, well, I will just scour job boards and things like that. That was actually how I found my primary gig at the time, the one I just described a few minutes ago. I found them on the ProBlogger job board. So I'm like, well, I'll just keep looking there, and I'll look at other sites like that. And, if I apply to enough places, email enough places, something's sure to work out. And I spent a lot of time doing that, and it wasn't that simple either. Other sites weren't willing to pay me as much or pay me what's worth my time, or, I just didn't hear back from people. There was a lot of competition. I think it's a pretty competitive area. I probably underestimated that a little bit. So I think that was definitely a big challenge that I wasn't really prepared for.
How did you overcome that? What was your next step? How did you start finding those clients?
Well, I really spent more time, figuring out how to market myself better. And I think that's there's just something to that I just didn't, I don't really have a marketing background, and I wouldn't call myself like the biggest like hustler out there, or however you want to describe it. Like, I'm not the type of person that is really, forward about marketing myself or talking about what I can do or talking about how like great I am at something. It doesn't really come naturally to my personality. So I joined a few different like online communities where I was able to talk to people that were going through the same thing I was, and learn from which resources they were using, and kind of figure out how I can come up with a better marketing plan to really find the gigs that I want to find. And like part of that was doing more in-person marketing events, which, I've had mixed results with in the past, but it turned out, out of the blue, one worked out really well that I ended up going to. I pretty much randomly ran into somebody met somebody that I didn't know before, and they were looking to hire a copywriter to do some writing for their website. And that turned into a pretty big gig. I think it was something like $6,500, which was the largest project I had ever done at the time. So that kind of like got the wheels turning in my head. That like, wow, like you don't really know when these, clients are going to come about. You don't know when these moments are going to strike. But if you keep trying to do different things and kind of diversifying your approach, it gets easier and easier. So that was really one of the main lessons I learned, is that you just have to have a lot of irons in the fire, and you have to, I guess, keep them in there for a while before they get hot. Or I don't know how to complete the analogy there, but it just takes a lot of different approaches to marketing to really find the work, is what I found.
So that $6,500 client, was that a fixed term project? Was there any kind of recurring future with it? How did that work, and how did the discussions work when you were getting started?
Yeah, so that was actually my first fixed term project too, or at least one anywhere close to that size. But basically the conversation was that it was a local community college here, and they were pretty much looking to redo all their web content. So it was primarily copywriting, not so much like blog post writing or that kind of thing. But basically what they asked for was, what it would cost to do the copy for these landing pages for their website, which is where prospective students would go and find out more about the class, and then hopefully, fill in their name and email or something like that to get more information about the class. So it's kind of a lead generation page for the community college. So the idea was that I would write the copy for these pages, and I think I did it for about 13 different programs, which had different goals, business goals for each one. They're all like small business related classes, so it was pretty interesting. So then, what were your next client stories after that? Did you get more fixed term projects? Did you find more recurring projects? How did you build up your income to support your life? So thankfully, most of the clients I've worked with have been recurring monthly clients. And that was the case for up until I just recently started my job that I'm working at now. But that's really been the key. And I really like finding recurring clients a lot better because, you don't have to keep marketing yourself. You don't have to worry as much about where your income's going to come from every month. And on those fixed term projects, they're going to end eventually, and then you have to replace that income somehow. So you have to really have, some real leads in the pipeline pretty much all the time, or you're not going to be making any money. So most of the clients I had were monthly clients. And for those kinds of clients, blogging does lend itself very well to recurring monthly work because they want new content all the time to either, entertain or to keep their customers happy and interested in their business, or to attract new customers through search engines or social media or those types of things. So primarily, most of my clients have been monthly clients where they pay me, X number of dollars per blog post, and I provide X number of blog posts a month. And that could range pretty widely. I think somewhere as little as like 1 blog post a week, or 4 blog posts a month, anywhere up to say 10 blog posts a month. It really depended on the client.
How many blog posts per week do you think you were writing?
I never got too high. I'm not a super fast writer. I'm not someone that just cranks stuff out really fast. And I prefer to go for quality and spend time researching and doing a good job. Not to say that people who write fast don't do that, but so I think at the peak I probably got to not too many, probably 8 blog posts a week. It was pretty manageable.
So about 2 a day ish.
Yeah, I'd say 2 a day max. It was a pretty good pace for me. I could kind of schedule out my day, and I could probably still turn around most blog posts in 3 hours, 4 hours max.
So in those times when you were at your kind of peak client levels,
yeah,
what kind of income were you making, and how much were you making compared to that nonprofit job that you'd left?
So at the peak levels, I was getting paid anywhere from $200 to $350 per, say, most clients didn't really have a strict word limit, but say about 800 word blog post. So on the upper end, those are pretty good rates. Some of the lower end clients, I kept around just because it was pretty easy to churn out those blog posts. They're a little bit easier to write. They took less time. So overall income, I was making close to $60,000 a year, roughly, or roughly $5,000 a month in revenue. That's pre-expenses.
So how many do you know at any point what your peak number of clients was that you were working with at a time, and how did you manage all those relationships and keep everything straight?
Yeah, so I think my max was 4 clients at a time, and that could get a little bit hectic, but honestly, I think I was more blessed compared to other people, more lucky in terms of the clients I had. They were pretty easygoing. I'm not really someone that likes to be in a lot of meetings or things like that, and only one of my clients was actually local. But most of my clients never really required to have like weekly meetings or even monthly meetings. So that kept things pretty easy. All the communication was pretty much by email. And we could just go kind of back and forth on, blog post topic ideas or revisions or things like that, and then schedule calls as needed. So I think keeping meetings to a minimum made things a lot easier. And I think just, checking in a lot, though, too, was pretty helpful by email. I tried not to just, communicate with them just when I needed something, because then that kind of makes it a little more difficult. And I don't think that that's a great relationship that way. But I think other than that, my key was really to, I map out all my week's work ahead of time. So either Sunday night or first thing Monday morning, I'll have a list of basically everything I need to do that week. I know roughly how long it's going to take me to write a blog post. So I kind of work in like 50-minute blocks. So I know maybe it'll take 3 50-minute blocks to get a blog post finished. I'll make sure I have enough time to schedule that throughout the week for each blog post for each client that I write for. So just in terms of time management, just being sure that I can keep on track of my weekly goals and monthly goals so I can meet the needs of every client.
Do you have any favorite tools that you use to help map out your days and your calendar? Are you, outside of your email, do you use anything like Asana or Trello or one of those task managers?
I'm actually just a big Evernote user. And in terms of mapping out my daily and weekly goals, I just have a note in Evernote that I just update every week. It's probably silly, but I really like the fact that they have a checkbox feature. I really like checking things off. So I use the checkboxes in Evernote, but it's pretty manual in that sense. I don't really schedule out my time in the sense that I'm like, okay, from 9 to 10 a.m., I'm going to be working on this project. From 10 to 11, I'm working on this project. I have found in the past that creates a little bit more frustration for me than it does help me. So I kind of try to avoid doing that. Instead, try to just lay out what I need to do for the day the best I can in terms of how much time it takes. And from there, I just, do my best to complete my 6 daily goals. I have about 6 a day.
So as you developed all of this and started working with more clients, did you still give much attention to Money Spruce? Did that help you find more clients, or did you find more clients other ways? Were there referrals? How did you grow your business?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. At one point, I don't know, it was probably a year ago or so, or maybe a little bit longer. I had decided hey, I think I've, hit the max or hit the ceiling on what I can do in terms of personal finance, or I think I was getting a little bit frustrated with some of the clients I had at the time, or at least it just wasn't working out that well. So I thought I was going to actually get out of personal finance altogether. But then an interesting thing happened, and that's that clients or prospects leads kept coming to me through various means. So with the intention of shutting off the personal finance writing a bit, I had a bunch of new clients come in, and I think one of the things that I do, at least when I'm not super interested in working for them, I'm like, well, I'll just throw out a really high number that I don't think they'll accept. And, but more often than you think, they just say, okay. So then you're like, well, I guess I will do this project. So, I did get some leads. I don't know if any came directly through the Money Spruce site, but I actually did have a weird lead come through someone that just Googled my name. I was like a testimonial on a site, just Googled my name, and it said like Jeffrey Trull, Money Spruce. Then tracked me down, then found me that way. So that was kind of funny. I had another client find me on LinkedIn because I had written for a competitor of theirs who I had since stopped writing for. And, there wasn't really any conflict of interest or anything. So they just found me purely because I had listed writing for this other company on LinkedIn. So, and then I am actually part of a local writers group here in Portland called the Copywriters Conclave of Portland. And that's actually been a really nice source of leads too, because all the writers, is about 12 of us, have a bio on the Copywriters Conclave website where people can go through there. And we actually, our site for our group ranks #1 in Google for Portland copywriters. So I've actually had some clients come through there and find me, and some other leads that I didn't end up working with, but that's been a pretty good referral source too.
That's cool. So do you have a website of your own just about your freelance business, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you share what that is so people who are listening can go look you up and see what you do?
Sure. Yeah. So my writer business website, which I think I've had for probably like 3 years or so now, is Jeffrey B. Trull, B as in Bob from my middle initial. I couldn't get it without that, but jeffreybtrull.com is my writer website. And it's pretty basic, but I think it's been a huge key to getting clients. It's really important to have a place where you can showcase your work. So I have my portfolio page on there that shows some of the best work I've done. It doesn't even show all the work I've done now because it's just really too much to put up there. So I built out my portfolio page with kind of the work that I've enjoyed doing the most, the work that I want to find, and prospective, clients have been able to look at that and see my abilities and that kind of thing.
Did social media help you find any clients at all, or did you have to use that for any client purposes, or has that just been? I know you do a little tweeting and whatnot. Is that mostly for fun?
Yeah, I mostly tweet for fun. I don't think I've ever really gotten any clients like through Twitter or anything. I did get that one client that I mentioned through LinkedIn. So I think that's probably one of my only real social media successes that I can point to. But I'm not really big on social media in general. I don't know. At least for me, I approach it mostly from a kind of fun way to share things standpoint. And I feel like a lot of people kind of approach it the same way. So I'm not sure it's always the best environment for conducting business. It really depends on what platform you're on. But for me, I haven't really found it to be a really effective strategy for finding clients.
So as you shifted forward, and I know you had one client that became a really big client, which led to a full-time job. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to give up on the freedom of freelancing and take a full-time job? And was the compensation enough to make up for what you were giving up? And do you still keep anything on the side of the main job, any of your old clients, or are you just full-time on the new job?
Yeah. So, I've been full-time freelancing, I had been for almost 3 years. It would have been 3 years this coming May. And I'd never really pictured myself going back to a job. There were very few times where during this period, and there are lots of ups and downs, trust me, as you might have gathered from my earlier part of this conversation. But I never really envisioned going back to a job. But I'd always thought in my head, like, well, if the right opportunity came along, I would definitely consider it. So sure enough, one of my clients, student loan hero, who I now work for, Andy, who's the CEO, approached me a few months back, and he said, we're growing really fast. Would you be interested in coming on full time? And I'm like, well, I'll have to think about it. And we talked about it a bit more, and I waited for him to send me an offer letter. And so I got the offer. I'm like, well, this is, certainly, pretty close to what I'm making as a freelancer to consider going on full time. And I'm like, what? I don't really like getting a job. What's that going to be like? But a few things sealed the deal for me on taking the job. Number one is that I still get to work remotely, which I love about freelancing and about this job now. I have my own office. It's about 2 miles from my house in Portland, and I share it with another small agency. So I have some people to be around, but basically every day I get on my bike 2 miles to my office. I work there from 9 to 5. I take breaks, go to food carts, talk to people when I want, and then when it's time to work, I have a place to concentrate that isn't my home. And I just really like working remotely, and a huge part of that is I can still travel too. I go home. I'm from the East Coast originally. I don't know if we mentioned that, but all my family's on the East Coast. So I go back several times a year to visit them. And it's nice to have the option to work from there for a few days if I need to. So the remote working part was definitely a huge part of deciding to take this job. And secondly, I get plenty of time off, which is another big part. Right now I have about 4 weeks paid vacation a year. So that's really huge for me. Like I said, I still love to travel, and just having some of those freedoms that I had as a freelancer. I think in 2013, I traveled for about 3 months out of the year. So giving that up would be really hard for, 10 days of paid vacation a year or something like that. So but having more like a month off is a lot more easier to manage. And then third, the compensation was pretty good. It was comparable to what I was making as a freelancer, with the added benefit that it's guaranteed more or less every month as long as I have the job at least, versus when clients leave or you don't run out of work, you just don't get any more money when you're a freelancer until you find someone to replace them. So I think it is nice to have the security after a while, and just really focus on working rather than spending.
Hey, you guys just heard my doorbell and my dog's barking at my doorbell. I have no idea who's here. My wife's checking it, so we'll find out what maybe I got a package or something. That'd be fun. So anyway, you mentioned you work in an office space, and a lot of full-time freelancers like to work at home. Some do some coffee shops or bookstores or whatnot. What did you try working at home before, and what led you to work in an office space?
Yeah, so this is a really funny story that I like to joke about all the time. I mean, it's kind of not really a specific story, but I was totally, when I was waiting to quit my job, I was totally like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Like, I can just work from home. I can be in my pajamas. I can like work whenever I want. Like, if I don't want to work in the afternoon, I can just work at night, or I can just, have this really weird schedule, just work it around all my social engagements. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. So I thought that was going to be so cool going into being a freelancer, because I'd heard all these stories. And then once I started freelancing, I found out that I might not like those things as much as I thought. The first few months, I was like trying to work from home, and I'd get really distracted. I'm like a refrigerator peruser person. So whenever I get bored, I'm like, let me go see what's going on in the refrigerator. So I'd make plenty of trips downstairs.
Did it change very often between trips?
I think in my mind it always did before I got there. You always think you're going to find something new, but
the beer delivery guy came while I was working.
I know, right? Yeah, there wasn't even anybody home when I was there, despite my roommate. So so like I'd just distract myself being at home. I'd get like really lonely and be like, no one's around. It's so quiet. There's no one to talk to. This kind of stinks. I mean, I don't really. Yeah, working in my pajamas was okay, but then you just start to smell bad after a while. So,
what was your longest time without changing out of pajamas? Did you ever go like 3 or 4 days in a row?
Oh, I don't think I ever did that. I'm a pretty social person, so I go out at night a lot, and I obviously didn't go out in my pajamas, but maybe a couple days or something like that. But then I tried, working at coffee shops, and I think I literally only tried working at a coffee shop like 3 times in Portland. And Portland's like the land of coffee shops, but I just really don't like it. It's just like too noisy for me. And the coffee shop's along with the library. I'm like, well, when I have to go to the bathroom, I got to like pick up my laptop and bring it with me, or risk someone like stealing it. And then the hours are kind of weird sometimes. And like, I'm at a coffee shop, like I got to buy stuff. And, I just didn't really feel like comfortable at any of those places. So after struggling doing that for like 6 months, I'm like, I got to find somewhere else to go. So initially I had joined a co-working space, which if you're not familiar with it, is kind of just a space where a bunch of different solopreneurs, freelancers, or remote workers go to work. Sort of like an informal office, but everyone just kind of pays a monthly fee to work there. And, there might be something like, 20 people there any given day, and people rotate in and out or whatever. And, so I'd just go there. That was a little further away, but I'd bike over there, and I decided I liked working regular hours. Working 9 to 5 actually suits me a lot better because it's in sync with everybody else's social schedule. Like I said, I like to, go out for happy hours and things versus, when I didn't try to keep a 9 to 5 and I was just like, yeah, I'll work whenever. I'd be up at 11 p.m. like frantically finishing a blog post that's due at 8 a.m. the next morning or something. So just having the schedule and having the place to go and having the social aspect of it of, enjoying lunch, talking to other people, or, just having a little chit chat during the day or something like that was improved my, quality of life a lot more, and just made freelancing in general a lot more enjoyable and a lot even more productive, to be honest.
Right. So along the way, did you have any big personal finance lessons you learned, or anything you still struggle with?
I think one of the biggest struggles is as a freelancer is figuring out how to plan for irregular income. And I'll be honest, that's not one that I really figured out all that well. It could be challenging just to figure out how to pay yourself. And I initially started out as a sole proprietor. So all my clients paid me, Jeffrey Trull. And so I just deposited into my regular bank account. But a little over a year ago, I switched over to an LLC. So I'd pay my LLC and that money would go into a business banking account. And then I would pay myself from that. So that helped things a little bit, but it's still a little bit hard to kind of predict your income and kind of budget accordingly when you're not always sure how you're going to get paid. I think ideally, having an emergency fund or having some sort of backup fund is hugely important. I would definitely recommend, always having cash reserves for probably at least 3 months living expenses as a freelancer. But again, that can be easier said than done if you're, just getting started or you don't have a whole lot of money in the bank. But trust me, it'll save you a lot of stress later if you can have that reserve ready. And I think just the other challenge too is dealing with taxes can be a huge pain. Just figuring out how, as a freelancer, you're a business, so you're allowed to take business expenses and stuff. But don't forget, you also can owe more money too. You owe both sides of Social Security or whatever you call it. So you have to pay, I believe, about 13% instead of 6.5 or something. I don't know if that's right. Sounds about right, Eric. But
I think that's right. It's close. If it's not right on, it's in the ballpark.
So you owe a little bit more in terms of those taxes. If you want health insurance, you have to pay for it yourself. No, you don't have an employer that's going to pay for it for you. My office costs money. I have to, pay $200 or $300 for that every month. If I want to go on business trips, those are expenses. So, write-offs are great and everything like that. That's a huge plus, but it's also just makes it a little bit harder to see the big picture, especially if you're getting started and you're close to the threshold of making or below the threshold of making, the amount of money you need to cover the bills every month.
Great. Well, this is a great story. Thank you so much for sharing with me and with everyone else. I know a lot of your story just because we like to hang out. Jeffrey is a really cool guy. He came to my bachelor party and my wedding, and I know he knows how to party hard because we've done it together. But he also is obviously very professional and does well with his own business dealings. And, as we say a lot on this website, on the blog posts and in the podcast, you can pick up some stories. There's lots of great ways you can earn money on the side. As you see, Jeffrey turned that into a full-time job. You can do so much, and there's a lot of great benefits of that. The freedom of being able to travel to go wherever you want. 3 months a year traveling is a pretty amazing thing. I know Jeffrey's gone to Thailand for an extended trip. He's done some great things. So for now that you have a full-time job again, but with that location independence, do you have any big plans? What's next for Jeffrey Trull?
I don't have any big travel plans right now. I'm flying out to the East Coast though on Friday for my cousin's 30th birthday. So that'll be fun. And I've got some pretty fun conferences lined up. I actually just signed up for the Copy Blogger Authority Conference in Denver in May. But I think thanks to my remote working, I'm going to bump that trip out on the end a little bit and kind of extend my stay and work from the Denver Boulder area for a little while. And other than that, just looking forward to enjoying the summer here in Portland again. I pretty much lock myself down because the weather is so nice. That's one of the best kept secrets out here.
Well, don't tell too many people our secret. Everyone's moving here anyway. The secret's out. I was one of them. You were one of them. We both moved here. We're both transplants.
Right.
Well, anyway, so thank you so much for your time and sharing your great story with us. I'm picking up my Hop Smack IPA to give you a virtual cheers to Jeffrey and everyone else listening. So thank you so much for listening and being a part of it. Listeners out there, I know I mentioned it before, but if you could get a chance to give us a rating on iTunes, it would be very appreciated, or any other place you listen, Stitcher, whatnot. It just takes you a few seconds, but it means the world to me and helps get the word out about the show and the website. And until we speak again next time, stay profitable. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Profitability Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on iTunes or share it with a friend.